So today I want to make another incense holder using Cosclay again. And the first one I did, the mouse was cute and it was fun, but I want to try something else today. And here I'm preparing some of the Cosclay. It's not as easy to condition, in my opinion, as like Sculpey or other brands. So I really need to use this pasta roller just to make it easier. And you can see that in the beginning, it's quite crumbly. So you have to keep working at it. It takes a few minutes. You just keep putting it through the roller like this. And eventually it becomes a really nice, smooth, almost elastic clay. But you do have to go through this process. I know that some people use a blender. I've never done that, and I don't want to think of having to clean it out. So I use this since I already have this pasta maker. So when that's done, what I do is I choose a container that is of the size I like, and I cover it with foil. I have to say I did this many times. First I put the foil inside, and then eventually I decided I'll do it on the outside because it was a whole lot easier. Then I cover it with the conditioned clay. I try to make this as smooth as possible because those bowls are usually smooth, but it's really up to you. I mean, if you intend to make this, you can make your bowl the way you want to. You can even stamp designs on it if you like. I think that would be quite interesting, but for this one, I just wanted to make a simple bowl. So all I'm doing here is just trying to smooth it out, and it takes a while. It takes patience, just like with anything. So I use this roller just to make it easier, and just so I don't get a lot of fingerprints on it. It's quite inevitable when you're working with any kind of clay that you will get your fingerprints on them, but there's always a way of removing them. Okay, so I baked that because it was easier. At first I tried doing this part without baking the bowl. Then it was kind of difficult to put the rim, so I baked it first, and then I rolled out some more clay, and then I added to the top to kind of make a rim. Now the bowl has to be high enough so that when you put the cone incense in, there's room for it to keep burning. So I added the rim just for a kind of like I guess an extra, just to add some height to it. But at the same time, I thought it would make the bowl look a bit more finished. Now this is where I start to make the rice. So I use foil, and I just kind of measure it. That I do like a half sphere sort of, because I need to have that concave shape inside again, so that there will be space for the incense. And I reuse my foil a lot. So if you have large pieces of foil that you can use, please don't throw them away. Just reuse them. And I only throw them out when they become really, really small. because sometimes they get torn up, especially when you're removing them from, say, a hollow sculpt like a head or something. Sometimes there's no choice but to kind of like scrape them out bit by bit. Okay, you don't want those. And if you do have them, clean out your space, because it's kind of a headache to get them stuck in your clay. So here I'm using the white Cosclay to make the base for the rice. So you're going to have to roll out some of the white clay to cover the foil, and that will be your base. And that just saves you from having to make so much of the rice grains later on. And this doesn't really have to be all that smooth. Okay, I'm just trying to blend it in because I don't want any lines showing. Okay, so that's as much as I needed it to be. Now I'm going to put some texture because it also helps. And I use this, but I also have something that I use a lot in my sculpts. I made a mold out of small decorative pebbles, and I cast it. I made a mold out of it, and that's what I'm using here. Maybe in the future I can show you how I did that, but it's a very simple procedure. I just do this and put it all over. Now my pebbles are of course bigger than rice grains would be, but at least it gives a kind of texture, and that helps. In fact, if I didn't want to do rice grains, I could have probably stopped there, but I wanted to do rice grains. So for the grains, I just roll out a really thin rope of clay, and I slice them into bits, and I roll out those bits to make them look a bit like rice grains. Now, if you're more patient than I am, and if you want the kind of what do you call it, the long grain rice, then you could probably roll it out a bit more. And then I decided I didn't want to do white rice. Maybe I'll do a fried rice version. So I started dusting it with chalk pastel. Now, if you decided that you wanted the fried rice early on, not in hindsight like I did, you could mix a bit of yellow clay with the white, and you get the same thing, and probably easier too. Now here I'm putting 3 holes using a straw. And this is where the incense smoke will come out. Now, because I have 3 holes, that means there's enough room for air, for oxygen to come in and kind of keep the incense going. I didn't have to put any extra holes in the bowl. If you were to put just 1 hole on your rice part, then you would have had to put maybe a couple of holes, or just 1 hole. I would put a couple, even 3, at the bottom edge of the bowl, just so your incense doesn't get snuffed out. So I cleaned that up a little, and this isn't baked yet, so it's soft and it's still easy. Now I decide to put some carrots. Okay, so again, the carrot is just another little snake of clay. But what I do is I kind of flatten it a bit to make them look like cubes. Like when you cube the carrots, you slice, dice, cube. No, I think dice. I would say dice because you want them smaller, not cubed. So I do a bit of flattening, and then that's when I'll slice them and stick them onto the rice. Again, it's not been baked yet, so it will be sticky. Cosclay can be quite sticky. If you're not sure, like if you're using a different kind of clay, then you may have to glue it on using either a liquid polymer clay or glue. If you happen to be using air dry clay, you might want to use some glue just so it sticks. Okay, so that's what I do. Just slice and then stick it on. Spring onions. Now for this one, I wrap my knitting needle, thin one, with some foil. I roll out some of the clay and I stick the clay onto the needle. This is because I want the spring onions to be hollow. You know, like when you chop spring onions, they're hollow. You don't get a solid chunk of green. That's what I do. And then this one gets baked first because it's always easier that way. So after I smooth out the clay, I take it off the needle and then I bake that for probably 10 minutes because it's just like a pre-bake. And then I move on to making other stuff to add, which is really like I call it like a mystery meat. I just kind of blended white with a light brown colored clay, and I stretch it out until I have something that looks like meat with a bit of fat on it. And I just do what I did, how I did it with the carrots, and I stick it there. Okay, now I'm going to make the character that's going to be holding on to the bowl. At this point, I'm not really sure what character I'm going to make. I have a vague idea of what I want. To be honest, at first I thought I'd make a rabbit. I don't know why. I think I'm partial to rabbits. But this is, I'm just preparing the foil here for like the armature. Now I take a couple of pieces of wire for the legs. And at this point, I'm still not sure what it is I want to make, but it was coming to me. I remember the idea started coming to me. That's kind of how I do things sometimes. I start out with one thing and then I end up with another, especially for sculpts like these where I'm kind of free to do what I want to do. Okay, so I stick the legs in, and sometimes you need to use an X-Acto knife just to make room for it in the foil, because especially if you squeeze the foil pretty hard. The spring onions are now ready, so I just slice them, and the foil is still in there. So really all I do is after slicing, I poke those little bits out and then stick them on to my rice bowl. Okay, now that's done, I continue covering the foil. And this time I kind of know what I'm going to do. I decided, I'm going to make a carrot. Why not? So I decided if it's going to be a carrot, of course I'm going to need the orange clay. And I don't have to worry about the top of the carrot being, well, that's really the bottom, right? But you know what I mean? The top of the head is really the root of the carrot. And I don't have to worry about it being thin because this is Cosclay. And Cosclay stays flexible after baking because it's kind of like a hybrid of rubber and polymer and all that. So even if that's thin, that won't break off and it'll actually stay soft. Okay, then I removed some of the legs because I decided I will give it the leaves for legs and feet. So it's like an upside down carrot. And I just smooth it out. And I don't really worry about this part because, you know, they're supposed to be leaves, so they can be a bit scraggly, especially because he's been running around on those leafy feet of his, so they won't really be too smooth. This is where I add a bit of detail. I've already put in the eyes, and those were just little dots that I stuck there. And I'm using some acrylic paint just to give a bit of detail. I'm not really putting too much detail because I think the focal point would be the rice bowl. But, you know, if you are making it, feel free to do that. This was kind of like a quick thing I wanted to do. Certainly, if I wanted to emphasize the character, I would have done more shading. And this is it. This is it with the incense inside, and you can see it's it looks like a bowl of steaming rice, fried rice in there. And yes, I wanted to put that. Remember not to leave your incense burning, please, unattended. And sometimes I put a piece of foil or a bottle cap or something inside just to make sure. I hope you enjoyed it.